Har, while we look at the response that India has given so far, it has been a tightrope walk. But when the UNSC vote happens, which will be happening later tonight, India will have to make its stand clear whether it is about abstaining. If it is indeed about abstaining, then it will be seen as backing Russia and this entire aggression by Russia.
Yeah, I think there is no other option in my view for India but to abstain. But of course, in our statement, we can, of course, say several things which would make our stand very, very, give it greater clarity. And that would be in terms of, safeguarding the territorial integrity and sovereignty of countries. That is fundamental as far as the United Nations is concerned, as far as international law is concerned, as far as charter is concerned. So I think we are not going to either support or go against the resolution, whatever it might be. But while abstaining, we can also make our stand clear, as we have done yesterday when there was this discussion at the UN Security Council.
Yes.
There also we have maintained that while we advocate dialogue and diplomacy, but we have regrettably noted that that path has been left and path of violence and attack that has been resorted to. So I think in that context we can definitely make comments and statements while still abstaining from either supporting or going against the resolution.
I'll go back to other guests in just a bit. A quick word from you, Mr. Gehi. While we look at this entire evacuation exercise that is being unfolded, the government's primary concern and prime objective right now is to ensure that Indian students stuck there in Ukraine in several parts, be it Kyiv or other cities, return home safely. Their parents have been anxious here as well. This route that has been chosen, Hungary, Romania, is that the only way forward in terms of in order to get students back home here in India?
Well, unfortunately, for the timing, the answer is yes, that this is the only route. And I believe, also, if you look at what came out from the UNHCR right now, a few hours ago, is that the UNHCR, that's Filippo Grandi, has said that all these neighboring countries should be opening up to students and to other members who are coming in. And I believe that the world will be strictly, especially, I'm talking about, Romania, Poland, Czech, they'll have to strictly follow the UN Refugee Convention of 1951. And I'm not only talking about Indian students, plus the other people who are stranded, should be kind of embraced at this stage until there are further developments.
Yes.
Students have already kind of basically moved out, moved towards the border areas. And medical students, I would say, they are literally there. And I think they've been having a decent time so far in kind of, there's been a level of cooperation out there for sure.
Senia, coming back to you, while we look at those protests that are taking place in several parts, how is it being viewed as far as Putin's own domestic constituency is concerned? Is it being seen as the strong man who has invaded another country, or is there resistance and also voices of dissent that how can a leader, invade a democratically elected government and ensure that there is a regime change there?
So, of course, the impression is very mixed. The views are very mixed. Those who support the move, and I emphasize, they do not view it as invasion. They do not support invasion. Because what they are being told by state TV or state control channels of information, that this is a move to protect Russia from NATO. I mean, there is an argument for that. But what they are also told for the last 2 days is that Russia is only striking the military infrastructure of Ukraine, that nobody is, striking civilian buildings and so on. And I think the Russians who are only consuming information from the state, controlled channels, they are not really seeing the full picture. That is one point. There is other set of people who are opposing the move because, first of all, Ukraine is, it was one country. We all have relatives and families there. So if you see, could have seen yesterday Moscow, Yekaterinburg, St. Petersburg, my native city, people came out in the streets. People were detained. Around 1,600 people were detained. And of course, it's not a big number for India, but believe me, for Russia, where you detain and you can end up in prison just for standing, with a poster "No to War," you can end up in prison for a few years.
Okay.
It's a big number. So people are angry. People express themselves on Facebook and other channels. So there is mixed set of feelings.
Yes. So, Ambassador Sajanhar, the entire world is watching. There is a sense of helplessness also which is visible in Ukraine. When we look at what Ukraine said in its address to the United Nations, asking for help and support. But the only nature of support that they have managed so far is economic sanctions that have come from all NATO nations. There are no boots on ground, which they would have certainly wanted.
Yes, you're right, Marya, but I don't know whether that would have been a realistic expectation if we say that, that is what they would have wanted, because, it is Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, U.S. President Joe Biden, all of them had said in, very, very clear terms, in no uncertain terms, that there will be no boots on the ground, there would be no soldiers that they would be sending because Ukraine is not a member of NATO. I think, if I come back to your discussion that you were having earlier, whether it is a regime change or it is sending a message, it is my own assessment that it is both of them. Because if it was just sending a message, I think Mr. Putin had done that very well by amassing more than 100,000 troops on the eastern border, more than 30,000 troops on the Belarusian border, and 30-odd warships down below, that he has the capacity to launch a pincer-like movement against Ukraine. So it is not only a messaging. I think the message that he wants to send out, that Putin wants to send out, number one, of course, he wants to have a regime change in Kiev, because he says denazify and the oppression of the Russians. We have not heard of that all that much. So I think, whatever he says, whether that is to be accepted at face value or that can be challenged, I think that is another thing. But he wants a regime change. He wants a person in place in the presidential palace in Kiev, who is favorably inclined, who will change the constitution to say that Ukraine doesn't want to become a member of the European Union, it doesn't want to become a member of NATO. Number two, and I think that is more important, equally if not more important, he wants to send out a message to the world that Russia has arrived as a major global power. Russia of 2022 is not the Russia of 1991. You see, otherwise, if there was only that Ukraine does not become a member of NATO, let's face it, in the Bucharest conference in 2008, when the issue was first raised, it has taken 14 years, but the matter has not gone anywhere. So I think this is not really there in coming. So if it was just the question of keeping Ukraine out of NATO, it could have been done through discussions, through talks. But of course, the objectives of Mr. Putin appear to be much broader and much bigger.
Okay, there's a piece of breaking news coming in now, and then I'll get the final words from Jonah Blank.